I'd like to start off this speech by reading lyrics from an Edwin Starr song from back in the day. War, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. If you don't know the background of that song, it's about the Vietnam War from the 60s and 70s. And historical context, a lot of Americans thought it was unjust. They decided to protest it, and it was a really big deal. So in 1973, Richard Nixon enacted his Vietnamization policies, which was basically them pulling out of Vietnam. Their motto was peace with honor, so they wanted to just stop fighting. And I noticed in my research that there's a lot of parallels between that and now, with the tensions in the Middle East and in Ukraine. There's a lot of disagreement with our government about the United States' involvement in that war, and I tend to agree with it. We shouldn't be involved in other foreign conflicts because America's died. There's a precedent of historical failures recently, and there are a lot of unintended consequences. So my first point, many Americans died. According to a Brown University article by Jill Kimball, for all post-9/11 wars, the war on terror, over 900,000 Americans and American allies have died. But the sad part is, that's only as of 2021. In those 4 years, many more Americans and American allies have died. That's 900,000 fathers, mothers, brothers and sisters, and many more roles like that. And for what? Did we win? No. As I go on, I'd like you to think about that last question. Did we win? Because I'm going to come back to that. After 9/11, 181,510 active duty men and women, brave men and women, enlisted, and 72,988 brave men and women enlisted for the reserves. And one of these heroes was a man by the name of Pat Tillman. Many of you probably recognize that name because he was in the NFL for a while. He is one of the famous people who unfortunately died in a post-9/11 war. If you don't know, he had gone through all his training and was overseas, and he was involved in a friendly fire incident in which he was killed, then they covered it up. And this is just one of the tragic examples of deaths of American heroes that happened overseas. My next reason is the precedent of historical failures. Going back to Vietnam, we're coming up on the 50-year anniversary of April 30th, 1975. If you don't know that date off the top of your head, it's the fall of Saigon. According to KGET, which is an NBC affiliate in Bakersfield, California, journalist Robert Price talks about this upcoming 50-year anniversary. He basically goes on to describe what happened that day, how the North seized the city and there's a scramble to escape the embassy, and a lot of people died that day. And something I noticed is that a modern example of this is Afghanistan a couple of years ago. The Biden administration, starting with the Trump administration actually, decided that it would be a good idea to get the troops out of the Middle East. So Trump came up with the idea and then Biden executed the idea. But it was kind of abrupt and it ended up in disaster. In September of 2021, 13 Americans died escaping and defending those who would escape. And according to a CBS article from that day, $7 billion of military equipment was left behind for the Taliban. $7 billion with a B. So what do these examples have in common? The enemy still exists. There are still communists in North Vietnam to this day. And there are still Taliban in Afghanistan. And all that time, money, and lives that it cost was all for naught. But I would like to clarify this. I do not have a problem with the men and women that go overseas and actually fight. What I do have a problem with, though, is the men and women who send them over there. My next point is the unintended consequences of war. In the Middle East, there's been a ton of destabilization, not just since we decided to pull out of Afghanistan, but before that. But after Afghanistan, it escalated. We pulled our troops out of Gaza, which, as of October 7th, 2023, is a war zone. It's hell on earth. It's terrible. And for decades that had been brewing, but when we finally pulled out, it escalated. According to an AP News article, over 1,200 people died on October 7th when Hamas attacked Israel. Now, make no mistake, I don't support Israel, nor do I support Hamas, but I certainly, above all of that, do not support U.S. involvement. Since October 7th, the U.S. has sent over $17.9 billion to support Israel, according to that same AP News article. And what I don't like about that is how the money has to come from somewhere. It wasn't necessarily from taxes, it was from the Fed. And if you don't know how that works, the Congress basically comes up with spending bills and then they vote on it. If they agree on it, then the Fed prints that money. But if you're not an economist, you might not know that causes a lot of inflation. So according to Max Zahn at an ABC affiliate in New England, inflation increased about 3.3% since October 7th, when we started sending Israel a lot of money. And after the months of 9/11, according to Brian Roberts, who's a PhD in macroeconomics and worked at Homeland Security during that time, the GDP in the following months fell 0.5%, unemployment rose 0.1%, and all this stuff just makes it harder for the regular American, for you and me, for our parents who have to buy food and pay for gas and care for children and that sort of thing. And it just makes life harder. So the common counterpoint I found when researching was, what about just wars? You know, maybe we did need to be involved, but to that I say we haven't had a just war in 80 years. A counter argument to that is, what about 9/11? Did we not need to be in the Middle East? And I'd like to answer that with some numbers. There were 19 terrorists that came from 4 countries, none of which were Afghanistan, which is what we invaded. They were from Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. None of those are Afghanistan. And after a lot of research, I still don't know why we invaded Afghanistan. So to conclude, we shouldn't be involved in foreign countries because many Americans died. There have been a precedent of historical failures, and there's a ton of unintended consequences. Instead, I believe that we should listen to the words of Teddy Roosevelt when he said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." Thank you.